The remote slipped from Mason's fingers, clattering against the coffee table like a gunshot in the quiet apartment. That's him," he whispered, his voice cracking as the man's face filled the screen. Smiling, polished, utterly unrecognizable from the monster in his nightmares. On the evening news, Logan's family beamed under studio lights, the anchor gushing about their picture-perfect American dream. But Mason's world shattered in that instant, the past clawing its way back with teeth bared. Mason Harper had always believed in second chances, the kind that came wrapped in late-night confessions and stolen kisses under Brooklyn bridges. At 25, he was finally piecing together a life that felt like his own. A barista gig at a hipster coffee shop in Williamsburg that paid just enough to cover his rent. A tiny studio apartment overlooking the East River where the fog rolled in like forgotten dreams. And Logan Ellis, the guy who'd crashed into his world 6 months ago like a summer storm, all easy grins and calloused hands from his construction job. Logan was everything Mason hadn't known he needed. Broad-shouldered, with that effortless Midwestern charm that made Mason's stomach flip every time he laughed at one of Mason's dumb puns. They'd met at a queer poetry slam in Bushwick, where Logan had shown up in a flannel shirt 2 sizes too small, reciting a heartfelt piece about loving in the shadows of small-town bigotry. Mason, nursing a gin and tonic and hiding his own scars behind a smirk, had been hooked from the first line. But tonight, sprawled on his sagging couch with a 6-pack of IPA warming his veins, Mason wasn't thinking about poetry or Logan's dimples. He was doom-scrolling through channels, half watching the news to drown out the loneliness that crept in on weekends when Logan was off playing the dutiful son in Connecticut. Logan's family was old money, Ellis Pharmaceuticals, the kind of empire that funded half the cancer research wings in Ivy League hospitals. They weren't just rich. They were fixtures on the society pages, the faces of philanthropy galas and TED Talks on resilience. Logan downplayed it, always waving off Mason's questions with a sheepish, "They're just people, babe. Complicated people." But Mason had never pushed. Why rock the boat when things were finally floating? The segment started innocently enough. A puff piece on the Ellis Foundation's latest fundraiser for LGBTQ plus youth shelters. The anchor's voice was syrupy, all earnest empathy. Joining us tonight is the visionary behind it all, Dr. Richard Ellis, alongside his wife, Elena, and their son, Logan. Richard, what inspired this initiative? And there he was, Dr. Richard Ellis. The camera panned to a man in his late 50s, silver hair slicked back like a senator's, wire-rimmed glasses perched on a nose that Mason remembered all too well. That nose had loomed over him in sophomore English class at Ridgewood High, back in the sticky summers of central Ohio, where the air smelled like cut grass and unspoken shame. Mason's heart slammed against his ribs, a freight train derailing in his chest. Couldn't be. Not him. Not here. On national fucking TV, beaming like some saint. "Education saved me," Richard Ellis was saying, his voice smooth as aged bourbon, the kind that burned going down. "And it can save these kids too. We owe it to them to build bridges, not walls." The audience in the studio, carefully curated, no doubt erupted in applause. Elena Ellis, elegant in pearls and a cashmere sweater, nodded serenely beside him. And then Logan leaned in, his arm draped casually over the back of the couch, flashing that megawatt smile. "Dad's right. It's personal for us. We've seen what happens when love gets twisted up in fear." Mason bolted upright, the beer bottle tipping over and soaking his jeans. Personal? What the hell did that mean? His mind reeled back 12 years. to the fluorescent-lit classroom where the world had first cracked open under his feet. Mr. Ellis back then, just Mr. Ellis, the brooding English teacher with a penchant for dissecting Hemingway like it was gospel, had caught Mason and his tentative high school crush, Tyler, passing notes in the back row. Not just notes. A doodle, stupid and sweet, two stick figures holding hands under a rainbow flag Mason had scribbled in secret. Tyler had bolted when Mr. Ellis snatched the paper, but Mason stayed frozen, 16 and terrified, his palms slick with sweat. The class had gone silent as Ellis unfolded the note, his face twisting into something between disgust and pity. "Harper," he'd barked, holding it aloft like evidence in a trial. "This isn't art. This is delusion. Whatever fantasy you're chasing, it ends here. Hand it over and keep your head down, or I'll make sure the principal hears about your little distraction." The words had landed like punches, each one bruising deeper than the last. The class snickered, kids who tomorrow would pretend it never happened. But in that moment, their eyes were knives. Mason had mumbled an apology, tears burning hot tracks down his face, and spent the rest of the semester invisible, skipping English altogether until his grades tanked and his mom dragged him to therapy. He'd buried it deep, that shame, under layers of sarcasm and late-blooming pride. Moved to New York after community college, clawed his way into a life where he could kiss boys in public without flinching. And now the man who'd gutted him was Logan's father. Logan's dad, the hero on TV, preaching love like he hadn't once wielded words as weapons. Mason's phone buzzed on the armrest. "Logan, right on cue. Miss you tonight. Family dinner's a circus. Call me after?" A heart emoji, innocent as a summer breeze. Mason's thumb hovered, then dropped the phone like it scalded him. He grabbed his keys instead, storming out into the November chill of McCarran Park. The wind off the river whipped his hoodie around him, carrying the faint honk of taxis and the distant wail of a siren. He walked until his legs burned, replaying the segment in his head, searching for clues. Had Logan known? No. Impossible. Logan, with his gentle hands tracing Mason's tattoos, whispering "You're safe with me," after nightmares woke them both. Logan couldn't know. But the betrayal gnawed anyway, not just Richard's, but the universe's, for dangling this cruel reunion like a punchline. By the time he circled back to his building, the buzz had worn off, leaving a hollow ache. He fired off a text, "Rough night. Rain check." Logan's reply was instant. "Everything okay? Talk to me." Mason typed "fine," deleted it, typed "just tired," hit send. Lies already piling up between them like snowdrifts. The next morning dawned gray and unforgiving, the kind of New York November that seeped into your bones. Mason dragged himself to the coffee shop, the hiss of the espresso machine a merciful distraction. His coworker, Jax, a non-binary artist with neon blue hair and a nose ring, clocked his vibe immediately. "You look like someone pissed in your Cheerios, Maze." Spill. Mason frothed milk with more force than necessary. "Boyfriend's family is on the news. Turns out his dad's a ghost from my past." Jax whistled low. "Oof. Creepy uncle. Worse. High school teacher. The one who outed me to the whole damn class." The words tasted bitter, like oversteeped tea. He hadn't said them aloud in years. Jax's eyes widened. "Holy shit. And Logan's clueless. Far as I know." Mason slid a latte across the counter to a harried mom, forcing a smile. We've been good. Great. Even. But now. I don't know if I can face it. The door chimed, and in walked Logan, all 6'2" of him bundled in a peacoat, cheeks flushed from the cold. He grinned like sunshine breaking clouds, leaning over the counter to steal a kiss. Surprise shift. Thought I'd walk you home later. Mason's heart stuttered, caught between warmth and warning. Close. Logan smelled like sawdust and sandalwood, grounding in a way that made Mason want to spill everything. But the words stuck. Hey, you. Didn't expect the royal visit. Logan's eyes searched his, that intuitive spark flickering. You sure you're okay? Text seemed off. Just the weather. Mason lied again, smoother this time. And this job. Tips suck on Mondays. They bantered through the rush. Logan perched on a stool sketching blueprints on a napkin while Mason slung drinks. It was easy, familiar, their rhythm. But under it all, the secret festered, a shadow lengthening with every laugh. That night, tangled in sheets that still smelled like Logan's cologne, Mason almost confessed. Logan's head on his chest, fingers tracing lazy circles on Mason's hip. My folks want to meet you, Logan murmured, voice sleepy and soft. Thanksgiving. The whole shebang, turkey, awkward toasts, Dad's bad jokes. Mason's breath hitched. The room spun for a beat. Yeah? Nervous. Logan chuckled, nuzzling closer. Nah. You're perfect. They'll love you. A pause. Then quieter. Dad's been asking about you. Says it's time I brought someone real home. Real. The word echoed like an accusation. Mason stared at the ceiling cracks, mapping constellations in the plaster. Perfect? If only Logan knew how cracked he really was. The days blurred into a tense countdown. Mason threw himself into work, sketching poetry in stolen margins, raw lines about ghosts in suits and love's fragile scaffolding. Jax tried to pry more details, but Mason deflected with jokes. Logan, sensing the shift, doubled down on romance. Surprise picnics in Prospect Park, mixtapes of indie folk that made Mason cry in the shower. It was all so achingly sweet. It hurt. Thanksgiving Eve found them on the subway to Connecticut. Logan's hand warm in Mason's, the train rattling like his nerves. Stamford's suburbs unfolded in manicured lawns and glowing windows, the Ellis estate a colonial behemoth at the end of a winding drive. Home sweet fortress, Logan quipped, but his grip tightened as they pulled up. Elena Ellis greeted them at the door, all warm hugs and Chanel no. 5. Her smile practiced but genuine. Logan, and this must be Mason. We've heard so much. She ushered them into a foyer that screamed old money. Crystal chandelier, oil portraits of stern ancestors. The air hummed with cinnamon and roasting turkey, undercut by the faint tick of a grandfather clock. Then he appeared. Richard Ellis, descending the grand staircase like a king from his tower. Tailored slacks, cashmere sweater vest, every inch the benevolent patriarch. His eyes, sharp behind those glasses, landed on Mason and paused. A flicker, gone in an instant. Recognition, or just polite appraisal? Mason, he said, extending a hand that swallowed Mason's in a firm shake. Pleasure. Logan's told us you're quite the wordsmith. Mason's throat closed. Close. The man was smaller than memory, lines etched deeper around his mouth. But the voice, God, that voice dripped the same authority. Dr. Ellis, Mason managed, his own voice a stranger's. Big fan of your work, liar, his mind screamed. The word hung unspoken as Richard's smile widened, oblivious or feigning it masterfully. Dinner was a blur of crystal clinking and Elena's anecdotes about charity balls. Logan squeezed Mason's knee under the table, a lifeline. But every time Richard spoke, praising Logan's latest project, quoting Frost with that professorial timbre, Mason's fork scraped louder against his plate. After pie, as the women cleared dishes, Richard clapped Logan on the back. Son, show Mason the library. He might appreciate the first editions. Logan beamed, tugging Mason down a paneled hall. The library was a sanctum, leather-bound tomes, a fireplace crackling low. Dad's pride and joy, Logan said, pulling a worn copy of The Great Gatsby from the shelf. He taught me to love this stuff. Says stories fix what's broken in us. Mason's laugh came out hollow. He traced the spine, fingers trembling. Yeah. Stories. The room closed in, the fire's warmth mocking the ice in his veins. He wanted to bolt, to scream, but Logan's eyes were so hopeful, so unguarded. They slipped away early, claiming city fatigue. In the car, Logan cranked the heat, his hand on Mason's thigh. You were quiet tonight. Dad say something? Mason stared out at the passing taillights, the lie rising easy now. Just jet-lagged from the week. They're great, though. Really. But sleep evaded him that night. Logan's snores a distant rumble as Mason lay awake, the past bleeding into the present like ink in water. The fracture started small, a hairline crack in the foundation of their Brooklyn bubble. December arrived with its manic energy. String lights twinkling in shop windows, the air crisp with pretzel vendors and pine from corner lots. Mason and Logan dove into the holidays like pros. Ice skating at Bryant Park, where Logan caught Mason mid-spin and dipped him low for a kiss that drew wolf whistles. Hot cocoa runs in the village, steam curling like secrets between them. On the surface, it was magic. But beneath, Mason carried the weight of Stamford like a stone in his pocket, turning it over in quiet moments, wondering when it would bruise. Richard Ellis haunted him, not as a villain in a cape, but subtler, a specter in corduroy. Mason scoured the internet in feverish bursts, piecing together the man's post-Ridgewood life. Harvard grad, pharma exec turned philanthropist, married to Elena for 30 years, father to Logan and a daughter off in med school. The articles painted him as a progressive icon, donor to marriage equality campaigns, speaker at HRC galas. From the classroom to the boardroom, one profile gushed. Richard Ellis proves redemption is possible. Redemption. The word mocked Mason, who remembered no apology, no follow-up, just a blank space in his transcript where English 2 should have been. He drafted emails he never sent. Do you remember me? The kid you humiliated? Or softer, your son doesn't know what you did. But the cursor blinked accusingly, and he deleted them all. What good would it do? Ruin Logan's Christmas? Shatter the fragile peace? No. Better to bury it deeper. Let it fester like an untreated wound. Logan noticed, of course. He always did. Over takeout Thai one night, sprawled on the floor with fairy lights casting golden halos, he propped himself on an elbow, green eyes serious. Babe, you've been distant since Thanksgiving. Is it my family? Mom can be intense, but she's harmless. Mason poked at his pad thai, appetite gone. It's not that. Just work stress. Holidays amp everything up. Logan wasn't buying it. He set his fork down, reaching for Mason's hand. Talk to me. We're a team, right? Whatever it is, we face it. The plea twisted like a knife. Mason wanted to spill every ugly detail, the classroom sting, the years of therapy unpacking that single moment. But the words caught on Logan's earnest face, the way he looked at Mason like he hung the moon. I love you, Logan added softly, thumb brushing Mason's knuckles. For real. All of you. I love you too, Mason whispered, the truth of it aching. And in that suspended breath, he chose silence. Again. The invitation came via engraved cardstock, slipped under their door like a summons from royalty. The Ellis Family Holiday Gala. December 20th. Black tie optional. Your presence would honor us. Logan hooped when he saw it, twirling Mason around the kitchen until they collapsed in giggles. See? They adore you. This is huge, half of Manhattan's elite will be there. Dad's honoring some queer activist group. Mason's smile felt painted on. A gala. Public. With Richard Ellis holding court. Champagne flute in hand. Espousing tolerance while Mason stood inches away, choking on ghosts. Sounds. Glamorous. It was worse than he imagined. The venue was the Metropolitan Club, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers dripping like frozen waterfalls. Mason tugged at his rented tux, the bow tie strangling him as they ascended the steps. Logan looked devastating, hair styled just so, suit hugging his frame like it was sewn on. You clean up nice, Harper, he teased, nipping Mason's ear. Gonna make all the trust fund babies jealous. Inside, the room swirled with diamonds and whispers, jazz standards floating from a live band. Elena air-kissed them hello, her gown a cascade of emerald silk. Darlings, drinks are that way. Richard's by the podium. Go say hi. Logan steered them through the crowd, his hand a steady anchor. Richard stood amid a knot of admirers, gesturing animatedly about his foundation's latest grant. Close. In the gala's glow, he seemed almost human, laugh lines crinkling as he laughed at a donor's quip. Then his gaze snagged on Mason, and there it was again, that pause, a beat too long. Logan, Mason. Richard's handshake was warmer this time, lingering. Glad you made it. Enjoying the hors d'oeuvres. Immensely, Mason replied, voice steady by sheer will. Your speech earlier powerful stuff. Richard's eyes lit with what might have been pride. Kind of you. It's all for the kids like. Well, like Logan here was. He clapped his son's shoulder, the gesture paternal, effortless. But Mason heard the echo, kids like you. The room tilted. As Richard drifted to greet others, Logan pulled Mason aside, pressing a stolen flute of champagne into his hand. Dance with me. The band struck up, Fly Me to the Moon, and Logan led him to the floor, bodies swaying in sync. For a moment, it was just them, Logan's breath warm on Mason's neck, the world narrowing to heartbeat and heat. You're tense, Logan murmured. Let go, babe. Tonight's ours. Ours. The word buoyed him, even as guilt gnawed. They spun under the lights, lost in each other, until the song faded and applause rippled. That's when it happened. A young woman in a sequined sheath approached, mid-20s, sharp bob, Logan's eyes but Elena's poise. Little brother, she drawled, hugging Logan tight. Who's this? Claire. Meet Mason. Logan beamed, pride swelling his chest. Sis. You should have seen him read at that poetry thing last month. Killed it. Claire sized Mason up, proving. The plot twist king. Logan won't shut up about you. She winked, then leaned in conspiratorially. Fair warning. Dad's on a mission tonight. Recruiting board members for the shelter project. If he corners you, feign interest in spreadsheets. Mason forced a laugh, but her words landed heavy. Recruiting. As if lives were line items. The night wore on in a haze of small talk and canapes. Mason stuck close to Logan, nursing his drink, but Richard circled back eventually, cornering them by the dessert table. Mason, he said, voice pitched low, almost intimate. Logan tells me you're from Ohio. Small world. Where'd you go to high school? The question was casual, a nicety. But Mason's pulse thundered. Did he know? Was this a test? Ridgewood, he said, meeting those eyes square. Central Ohio. You wouldn't know it. Richard's brow furrowed. Just a touch. Ridgewood. I taught there. Oh, a decade ago. English. Before the PhD program pulled me east. A chuckle. Self-deprecating. Ancient history. Mason's grip tightened on his glass. Yeah. Ancient. The air thickened. Charged. Logan's oblivious chatter about the band filled the gap. But Mason saw it now. The flicker in Richard's eyes wasn't ignorance. It was wariness. Recognition. Buried but alive. He excused himself to the balcony, gulping cold air laced with exhaust and river mist. The city sprawled below, a glittering beast indifferent to his unraveling. Footsteps behind him, Logan, concern etching his face. Hey. You vanished. Everything good. Mason turned, the lie dying on his lips. Your dad. He taught at my school. Logan blinked, processing. No shit? That's wild. Did you have him? The truth clawed up, begging release. But Claire's laugh echoed from inside, Elena's voice calling Logan's name. Family. Mason swallowed it down. Nah. Different years. Just small world, right? Logan pulled him close, oblivious. Fate, babe. Bringing us here. They kissed under the stars, slow and deep, but Mason tasted ash. Christmas came and went in a whirlwind of Logan's family traditions. Tree trimming at the estate, midnight mass where Richard led a hymn with baritone grace, gifts piled high under boughs heavy with ornaments. Mason played along, unwrapping a leather-bound journal from Elena. For your poems, dear. A vintage typewriter ribbon from Logan that made him tear up for real. Richard's gift was a first-edition Whitman, Leaves of Grass, inscribed to Mason, who reminds us words can heal. Alright. The note blurred through Mason's tears. Heal? From what? He tucked it away, smiling thanks, but the inscription burned like a brand. New Year's Eve found them back in the city. Logan's countdown kiss fireworks against Mason's skin. But as the ball dropped and Auld Lang Syne swelled, Mason made a silent vow. Confront it. Not for revenge, but truth. For the boy he'd been, and the man he loved. January's bite brought resolutions and regrets. Mason's shifts dragged. The coffee shop a confessional where Jax finally dragged the full story out over closing cleanup. You gotta tell Logan, Jax insisted, scrubbing counters with fervor. Before it poisons everything. I know, Mason sighed, stacking chairs. But what if it breaks us? Logan's tied to him, blood, history. Jax snorted. And you're tied to your scars. Honesty's the only bandage that sticks. That night, Mason rehearsed in the mirror. Your dad shamed me, outed me, ruined me. But when Logan got home, exhausted from a sight pour that ran long, collapsing onto the couch with a groan, Mason chickened out. Rough day? He asked instead, massaging Logan's shoulders. The worst. Logan melted under his touch. But this? Heaven. They made love slow and desperate, bodies a language when words failed. Afterward, Logan's head on Mason's chest, he murmured, "Move in with me? For real. Sublease your place. Make this ours." Mason's heart soared and sank in equal measure. Yes, he breathed, because how could he say no to forever? But fate, that cruel curator, had other plans. The call came mid-February, Logan's phone buzzing during a rare lazy Sunday brunch at their favorite diner. "It's Dad," Logan said, frowning at the screen. "Weird. He never calls Sundays." Mason's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Richard's voice crackled through the speaker, tinny but urgent. "Logan, it's about the foundation. We need you on the board yesterday. And Mason, I'd like his input too. He's got that fresh perspective." Logan grinned, mouthing holy shit at Mason. "Us? Really? Absolutely. Meet me at the office tomorrow." "Bring him." The diner noise faded to a hum. Mason nodded numbly, the eggs turning to lead in his stomach. Tomorrow. No more hiding. The Ellis Pharmaceuticals tower loomed over Midtown like a glass monolith, all sleek lines and security badges. Logan swiped them in, chattering excitedly about the view from the 42nd floor. Mason trailed, palms damp, the elevator's ascent a countdown to judgment. Richard's office was expansive, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the skyline, bookshelves groaning under awards and tomes. He rose from his desk, all business casual polo shirt, khakis like the professor he'd once been. "Gentlemen." "Coffee?" They settled into leather chairs, Logan diving into logistics while Mason sipped black brew that scalded his tongue. Richard's eyes kept drifting to him, praising. Finally, as Logan paused for breath, Richard leaned forward. "Mason, tell me your thoughts on youth outreach. From someone who's lived it. Lived it." The phrase hung, loaded. Mason set his mug down, steadying. "It's vital. But it has to be real. Not just photo ops. Kids need to know adults won't betray them." Richard's smile faltered, just a fraction. Betray. Strong word. The room crackled. Logan glanced between them, brow furrowing. "Everything okay?" "Fine," Mason said, too quick. But the dam cracked. "Actually, no. Dr. Ellis, Mr. Ellis, you taught me. Ridgewood, 2012. Sophomore English. Ring any bells?" Silence, thick as fog. Richard's face paled, glasses slipping down his nose. Logan froze. "Wait, what?" Mason pressed on, voice gaining steel. "You found a note. Between me and a boy. Called it a delusion. Made sure the whole class saw. I was 16. Outed. Humiliated." Logan's eyes widened, darting to his father. "Dad, is this true?" Richard removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose, a gesture Mason remembered from parent-teacher nights. "Mason." He exhaled, deflating. "I was different then. Struggling myself. My own inclinations. It was fear, projected. I was wrong. Deeply, the confession landed soft, but it detonated everything. Logan's chair scraped back. You outed a kid? My boyfriend? And never said shit. Richard reached out, placating. Logan, I didn't know, I swear. Not until Thanksgiving. The pause, the questions. I wanted to make amends. But how? Without dragging up pain. Amends. Mason's laugh was bitter. You preached love on TV while I hid in bathrooms crying. And now, this job offer? Pity? No. Richard's voice rose, cracking. Genuine. I see Logan's light in you. I want to help. Logan stood, face ashen. Help? By lying? We're done here. He grabbed Mason's arm, storming out, the door slamming like thunder. In the elevator, Logan punched the wall, knuckles blooming red. Fuck. I'm sorry. I had no idea. Mason pulled him close, the descent mirroring his fall. Not your fault. But as they hit the street, rain slicking the sidewalks, the fracture widened. Logan's phone exploded. Texts from Claire. Elena. What happened? Dad's a mess. Logan silenced it, hailing a cab. We need space. To process. Mason nodded, the city blurring past. Space. The word echoed like goodbye. The blowback hit like a nor'easter, fierce and unrelenting, stripping away the fragile warmth they'd built. That night, Logan crashed at a buddy's in Queens, texting Mason a terse need time. Love you. Mason paced their apartment, the walls closing in like jury members. He blasted Nina Simone until neighbors banged on the pipes, then sank to the floor, journal open but blank. Words, his refuge, betrayed him now. Morning brought a delivery. The Whitman volume, returned via courier with a note in Richard's precise script. I meant it about healing. Please, talk. For Logan. Mason tore it up, scattering confetti of forgiveness he couldn't yet claim. Jax found him at the shop, hollow-eyed and over-caffeinated. You look like death warmed over. Spill the tea. Mason did. The full torrent. Confrontation. Confession. Logan's fury. Jax whistled. Damn. Papa Ellis got layers. But you, hero move, confronting that shit, feels more like Grenade, Mason muttered, steaming lattes on autopilot. Logan's radio silent. What if he picks family over me? Jax hip-checked him gently. Then he's not the guy. But from what you say, he's reeling, not running. The day dragged, tips non-existent, until closing brought a shadow in the doorway. Claire Ellis, trench coat dripping rain, no makeup, looking every bit the mortal. Mason, can we talk? Off record. He hesitated, then nodded, locking up early. They walked to a dive bar 2 blocks over, neon buzzing open like a dare. Over cheap whiskey, Claire's choice, Mason braced for defense. But she surprised him. I'm furious too, she started, swirling ice. Dad's complicated. Grew up in the 70s Bible Belt, married mom to fit the mold. Logan and I, we got the polished version. But the skeletons, he buried them deep. Mason sipped, the burn grounding. Why tell me? Because you're good for my brother. And because Dad's not a monster, just a man who fucked up. Therapy helped him unpack it. Post-divorce scare with mom. The foundation? It's penance. Penance doesn't erase pain, Mason said quietly. No. Claire met his eyes. Steady. But understanding might. He wants to apologize. Properly. Mason laughed. Sharp. After 12 years? Pass. She nodded. No argument. Fair. Just don't write us off yet. Logan's hurting, but he loves you. Give him grace. Grace. The word lingered as she left a 20 for the drinks and vanished into the slush. Mason walked home alone. The city an indifferent witness. Streetlights haloing puddles like fallen stars. Logan returned 2 days later, key turning soft in the lock, like he feared shattering glass. Mason was on the couch, takeout congealing on the table. A rom-com paused mid-kiss. Logan's hair was tousled, eye-shadowed, a duffel slung over his shoulder. Hey! Hey! Mason's voice was raw, throat tight. Logan dropped the bag, crossing the room in 3 strides. He knelt, hands framing Mason's face. I'm sorry. For everything. For not seeing it sooner. Not your burden. Mason's hands covered Logan's, trembling. But it is. Logan's forehead pressed to his. You're my family now. Dad. I confronted him. Yelled. Mostly. He cried. First time I saw that. Said he's ashamed. Wants to make it right. I told him it's not his call. Mason exhaled, the knot loosening a fraction. What now? Now? We figure us. Logan kissed him, tentative then fierce. A reclaiming. They tumbled to the rug, clothes shedding like old skin, bodies mapping apologies in gasps and grips. It was messy, urgent, tears mingling with sweat, Logan's whispers of I love you a mantra against the storm. But dawn brought reality's edge. Over coffee, Logan stirred sugar endlessly. I need to know, can you forgive him? Not for him. For us. Mason stared into his mug, steam rising like ghosts. I don't know. It's not a switch. But I'm willing to try. Therapy, maybe. Together. Logan's relief was palpable, shoulders dropping. Yeah. Together. Spring teased early that year. Crocuses pushing through concrete cracks. A metaphor Mason couldn't ignore. They started couples counseling in a walk-up office off Union Square. A no-nonsense therapist named Rita who chain-smoked outside between sessions. Trauma's a thief, she'd say, scribbling notes. But love's a locksmith. Mason went solo too, unpacking the classroom in 50-minute bursts, the shame dissolving like salt in rain. Richard reached out via Logan first, a stilted call, then letters. Handwritten, on monogrammed stationery. I remember you now, Mason. The quiet boy in the 3rd row, eyes full of stories I was too blind to hear. I was scared of you, of me. That note, it mirrored my own hidden truths. I lashed out. No excuse suffices, but I am sorry. Truly. If there's a way to earn trust, name it. Mason read them in parks, Logan's head on his lap, debating aloud. Forgiveness wasn't absolution. It was release. He wrote back once. Apology noted. Time will tell. Neutral ground. The real test came in May. The Foundation's annual gala. Same venue. Different ghosts. Logan begged off, citing work, but Mason went. Alone. Black tie. Resolve tucked in his pocket like a talisman. The room hummed with the same elite swirl, but Mason moved through it steadier, nodding at donors, sipping club soda. Claire found him first, linking arms. Brave man. Dad's nervous. Keeps checking the door. Let him sweat. But there was no venom, just weary truth. Richard approached during the auction. Suit impeccable, hands clasped like a penitent. Mason. Thank you for coming. A beat. The band played low, a saxophone wail underscoring the moment. Had to, Mason said. For me, Richard nodded, swallowing. I owe you more than words. But here, the Foundation's new scholarship, named for you. Anonymous donor, but it's a start. Mason's breath caught. Plaque. Later he'd see the Mason Harper Resilience Fund. For voices silenced too soon. Why? Because you survived. And thrived. That's the lesson I miss teaching. They talked then, halting, about Richard's closeted youth, a marriage fraying at edges, Logan's coming out at 18 that cracked the facade. I envied your courage, Richard admitted. Even then, Mason listened, the boy in him softening edges. Not forgiveness, not yet but understanding. A bridge, rickety but real. Logan waited outside, leaning on a lamppost, cigarette dangling unlit. How'd it go? Complicated. Mason leaned into him, the night air sweet with lilac. But good. Us good. Summer bloomed hot and hazy, their lease renewed with paint-splattered boxes and dreams. Logan proposed expansion, a joint poetry chapbook, his sketches paired with Mason's verses. They fought too over dishes, over Logan's late nights, but made up fiercer, love a muscle strengthened by strain. Yet shadows lingered. One August evening, post-rooftop barbecue with Jax and friends, Logan scrolled news on his phone, face darkening. Dad's in the hospital. Heart scare. Mom's freaking. Mason's stomach dropped. How bad? Tests tomorrow. Can we go? The drive to Stamford was tense. Radio droning classic rock to fill silence. Elena met them in the lobby, mascara-streaked but composed. He's stable. Asking for you both. Richard's room smelled of antiseptic and wilted flowers, monitors beeping a mechanical lullaby. He looked small in the bed, for dripping slow. Logan. Mason. His voice was thready, but eyes clear. Logan gripped the rail, knuckles white. You scared us. Sorry, son. A weak smile. Then, to Mason, fate's funny. Facing mortality makes regrets louder. Mason pulled a chair close, surprising himself. Heard that. They talked, family, futures until Richard dozed. In the hall, Logan sagged against the wall. Thanks for this. For trying. Mason cupped his face. We're in it. All of it. Fall returned. Leaves carpeting Central Park in fire. The high holidays brought a tentative normalcy. Seder at Claire's, where Richard passed the Afikoman with a wink. No specters invoked. Mason's poetry reading that October, his first big one, at a Soho bookstore drew a crowd, Logan front row, whistling loudest. Afterward, over beers, Logan clinked glasses. Proud of you. Every word, but climax brewed unspoken. November's chill carried whispers. Richard's foundation under audit. Whispers of embezzlement from a rogue VP. The board convened. Richard at the helm, but evidence pointed fingers. Logan, now junior advisor, was pulled in late nights, strained calls. It's bullshit, he'd vent. Someone's framing it on Dad to cover their ass. Mason worried, the old distrust flickering. You believe him? With my life. Logan's eyes pleaded. Trust us. Please. Mason did mostly. Until the email. Anonymous. Forwarded from a burner. Screenshots of Richard's old emails. From Ridgewood days, vitriolic rants to colleagues about the gay agenda infiltrating schools. Calls for tough love on deviant distractions. Dated weeks after Mason's incident. Betrayal. Round 2. Mason's hands shook as he printed them, confronting Logan over midnight ramen. This changes things. Logan scanned. Paling. Fabricated. Has to be. Or truth. Mason's voice broke. I forgave a lie? No. Logan pulled him close. Desperate. We'll prove it. Together. The audit escalated. Headlines splashing. Pharma philanthropist under fire. Richard denied. But pressure mounted, resignation demands. Elena's migraines worsening. Logan threw himself in. Mason at his side. Digging through files in the tower's basement. Dust motes dancing like accusations. One rainy Tuesday. Breakthrough, timestamps faked. IP traces to the VP's home server. Richard's vindication came swift. Firing. Lawsuits. A press conference where he thanked my son and his partner, whose faith in truth mirrors their faith in each other. The relief was euphoric. Champagne toasts in the office turning to family dinner. Elena's roast chicken a bomb. But for Mason, it was deeper vindication for the boy, validation for the man. As snow dusted the city, Logan and Mason walked the High Line, hands linked, breath fogging. You saved us, Logan said. All of us. Mason stopped, turning. We saved each other. Under sodium lamps. He dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but a poem, handwritten on cafe napkin. In the ruins of what was, we build what will be. Marry me? Logan's yes was a sob. A yes to fractures mended, to love's stubborn alchemy. Winter gripped New York with iron fists, but inside their Williamsburg walk-up, Mason and Logan's world thawed into something radiant. The proposal napkin became legend, framed on the mantel, creased and coffee-stained like a relic. Planning unfolded in feverish joy. A spring wedding, small and queer as hell. Rooftop vows with Jax officiating in a sequin jumpsuit. Invites went out handwritten, wax-sealed with a doodle of 2 stick figures under rainbows. Mason's nod to that long-ago note. Reclaimed. Richard's recovery steadied. The audit a fading scar. He and Mason met weekly now. Coffees at neutral ground. A midtown deli where pastrami sandwiches bridged silences. Conversations meandered. Literature. Richard's love for Baldwin deepening Mason's. Fatherhood's regrets. The quiet terror of coming out at 60. Post-heart attack. To Elena's tearful embrace. She knew, Richard confessed once, over matzo ball soup. Always did. Forgave before I asked. Forgiveness is a gift, Mason replied, stirring his spoon. Not a debt. Richard's eyes misted. You're wiser than I ever was. Not wisdom, Mason thought, survival. But the meetings knit something tentative, respect. Edges softening to alliance. Logan thrived in the glow. His construction firm landing a foundation contract. Renos for the youth shelters. Blueprints sketched with Mason's input. Quiet corners for writing. Walls painted in murals of chosen families. Our legacy, Logan called it, rolling out plans on their kitchen table, pencil between teeth. But joy's underbelly is doubt, and March brought omens. A letter arrived, forwarded from Ridgewood. Tyler, Mason's high school ghost, now a graphic designer in Columbus. Saw the news about Ellis. Remember that class? You were brave. Still are. If you're ever in Ohio. No pressure, just coordinates for a coffee shop. A door cracked open to what ifs. Mason showed Logan, expecting nonchalance. Instead, Logan's jaw tightened. Your first love, first crush. Puppy stuff. Mason shrugged, but the air chilled. Logan nodded. Too quick. Cool. Just past is past, right? The seed planted, watered by wedding stress, venue hunts in the Hudson Valley, where rolling hills mocked urban grit, tux fittings where Logan fidgeted, whispering, what if it's too soon? Mason laughed it off, but nights found him awake. Logan's snores a barrier, mind wandering to Tyler's easy brave. April bloomed treacherous, cherry blossoms shedding like confetti regrets. The stag do, Jax's mastermind, a bar crawl through the village, ended in hilarity, shots and stories, Logan crowning Mason with a glittery tiara. But Dawn's hangover brought confession over greasy diner fries. Logan's voice small. I Googled him. Tyler. You too. Photos from college. Looked close. Mason blinked. Fork pausing. Ancient history. Why now? Logan picked at his sleeve. Scared. Of losing you to someone who didn't break you first. The vulnerability cracked Mason open. You're not losing me. Ever. They kissed over cold eggs, sealing it, but the fracture hummed low. Rehearsal dinner loomed. Ellis estate decked in lanterns and lilac. Elena fussed over seating charts, Claire teasing Logan's nerves. Richard pulled Mason aside in the garden, twilight gilding the roses. A word. Mason tensed, but Richard's smile was soft. Just this. I'm proud to call you son. Whatever shape family takes. The words landed warm, unexpected. Mason swallowed. Means a lot. From you. Betrayal struck at midnight, the eve before vows. Mason's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. Tyler's voice. Hesitant. Hey, Maze. Ditched the coffee idea, but saw your reading online. You're killing it. And that engagement, happy for you. Really. Just wanted to say back then, I froze. Should have stood up. Sorry. Innocent. A loose end tied. But Logan, grabbing water from the fridge, overheard the playback. His face shuddered. First love calling? Classy timing. Mason explained, placating. It's nothing. Closure. Logan's laugh was sharp. Closure? Or temptation? He stormed to the guest room, door clicking shut. Mason followed, heart pounding. Logan, stop. It's paranoia talking. Paranoia? Logan whirled, eyes flashing. You've been distant, staring at that letter like it's a lifeline. Dad's shitshow. The wedding, it's too much. Maybe we rushed. The words eviscerated. Rushed? This is us. Flaws and all. Logan deflated, sitting heavy on the bed. I know. But what if I'm not enough? After everything you forgave for Dad. For me. Mason knelt, hands on knees. You are. More than. They talked till dawn. Tears and truths. Logan's fear of unworthiness laid bare. Stemming from Richard's absentee years. Logan's own closet at 16. I don't want to be the villain in your story, he whispered. You're the hero, Mason countered. My plot twist. Dawn's light filtered peach through curtains. and they dressed for the ceremony, Logan in navy, Mason in charcoal, hands steadying each other. The rooftop, strung with lights and wildflowers, overlooked the Hudson's lazy bend. Guests milled, Jax in sequins, Claire with a rainbow boutonniere, Elena dabbing eyes. Richard stood sentinel, tie askew, pride etched deep. Vows exchanged under a floral arch. Logan's voice cracking on in sickness. In shadows, Mason steady with through betrayals. To grace. Rings slid on, simple bands. Engraved stories fix us. The kiss drew cheers. Jack's whooping. Get a room. Lovebirds. But the real climax unfolded post-reception. As dusk bruised the sky. Richard approached. Elena on arm. Glasses glinting. A moment. Boys. They stepped aside. To the garden's edge. Fireflies winking like conspirators. Richard cleared his throat. Today is more than joy. It's reckoning. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. Thick vellum. My will. Updates. But this, he handed Mason a separate sheet. Deed to the Ridgewood house. My childhood home. Yours now. Demolish it. Donate it, whatever heals. Mason's fingers trembled unfolding it. The house. Faded Victorian. Where Richard's father had preached fire and brimstone. Where young Richard hid comics under floorboards. Why? To break cycles. Richard's eyes shone. You gave me that chance. Take this. Logan squeezed Mason's shoulder. Silent support. Elena hugged them both, whispering, Family's what we build. That night, in a Hudson Inn, bodies entwined under crisp sheets, Logan traced the deed's creases on Mason's chest. Heavy gift. Healing one, Mason murmured. They made love slow, deliberate, celebration laced with catharsis, moans mingling with rain patter. Months blurred into marital rhythm. Joint bank accounts, weekend hikes in the Catskills, Logan's promotion syncing with Mason's chapbook deal. Richard's health rallied. Grandfatherly now, Sundays grilling in Prospect Park. Stories swapped over burgers. Tyler faded to a polite email exchange. Boundaries firm. Yet summer's heat brewed one final storm. July 4th. Fireworks bursting over the East River. Found them at a foundation picnic. Kids from the shelters laughing. Murals vibrant under string lights. A boy, 14 and freckled, tugged Mason's sleeve. You wrote that poem? About the teacher. Mason knelt, heart stuttering. Yeah. True story. The kid grinned, gap-toothed. Mine did too. Called me names. But now, I'm here. Thanks to you. The encounter rippled. Mason seeking Richard by the grill. That boy, his teacher. Richard flipped a burger. Somber. Mirrors. Huh? I hired her. Fired her last week. Policy now, mandatory training. No more shaming. Justice. Quiet but seismic. Mason nodded, throat tight. Progress. Fireworks crescendoed. Logan's arm around him. Family orbiting. Claire chasing nephews. Elena snapping photos. In that burst of color, Mason saw it. Not perfection, but humanity's messy weave. Betrayals mended. Loves forged in fire. Fall deepened. Leaves turning therapy gold. Mason's solo sessions tapered. Rita declaring, You've unlocked the door. Now live through it. Logan's birthday brought surprise. A weekend in Ohio. Ridgewood unbound. They drove the familiar streets. Mason narrating ghosts that field. First kiss fumbled. This diner, post-shame solace. The house waited, sagging but standing, windows like wary eyes. Inside, dust danced in sunbeams, echoes of sermons long silenced. Logan explored, finding Richard's old trunk. Letters, yellowed, Richard's to a forbidden college love, returned unopened. He was us, Logan said. But they didn't demolish. Instead, vision sparked, community center, for queer youth writing workshops, pride flags waving. Richard funded it, plaque simple, from pane to pages. Winter solstice, their first anniversary, found them under Brooklyn stars, rooftop blanket fort against the cold. Logan poured mulled wine. To plot twists, Mason clinked glasses. And happy endings, but life, ever dramatic, whispered one last act. Spring revealed Elena's diagnosis, early lymphoma, treatable but fierce. The family rallied. Chemo schedules synced with Logan's builds. Mason's poems read aloud in hospital rooms. Richard's hand steady in hers. We've danced this before, Elena quipped. Wig askew. I'll lead this time, through vigils and victories. Mason and Logan's bond tempered steel. Nights holding Logan as he wept. Mornings brewing tea for Elena's queasy dawn. Richard aged visibly, but gratitude shone. You too, he told them one remission eve, taught me love's not blood. It's choice. Summer swelled. Elena's hair regrowing in silver curls. The center's opening a riot of balloons and testimonies. The freckled boy read first. Voice steady, no more delusions. Only dreams. As dusk fell, Mason and Logan slipped away to the porch, hands laced. Worth it? Logan asked. City hum below. Every scar, Mason kissed him, deep and sure. Betrayal's echo? Faint now, a bass note in their symphony. Romance, raw and romantic, carried them, dramatic in its devotion, emotional in its empathy, humanistic in its hope. Years folded like well-worn pages, each chapter richer for the ink of trials past. By their 5th anniversary, Mason and Logan's apartment had bloomed into a brownstone in Bed-Stuy, high ceilings, garden plot where tomatoes vied with wildflowers, a home etched with laughter lines. Mason's chapbooks evolved into novels, Shades of Stick Figures a quiet bestseller, his dedication to L, who drew the rainbow. Logan helmed his firm, Green Builds for nonprofits, his sketches now murals in shelters nationwide. Richard and Elena retired to a Cape Cod cottage, winters in Florida chasing sun. Visits were ritual. Clam bakes where Richard recited Whitman by heart, Elena's quilts wrapping grandkids, yes, grandkids, via Claire's twins, adopted from the system Richard once reformed. He doted, silver hair tousled by sea wind, the professor's gravitas softened to grandpa's twinkle. But time's drama peaked in autumn's amber, 2035. Mason, 35 now, lines feathering his eyes like laughter's footnotes, felt the pull a novel's end, a life chapter closing. Logan, ever intuitive, noticed the quietude over harvest dinners, candlelight gilding his still broad shoulders. Spill, writer boy, he teased one night, feet tangled under quilts, rain tapping windows like impatient fingers. Mason traced Logan's wedding band, worn smooth, thinking about roots. The center, it's thriving, but Ohio calls. Not Ridgewood. Somewhere new. Logan's brow arched. Branch out? Like a satellite? Or us? The cabin. Summers with the kids. Mason's smile was tentative. Build something from scratch. The idea ignited. Plans sketched over coffee. A writer's retreat in the Shawnee Hills. Cabins clustered like chosen kin. Funded by book proceeds and Ellis grants. Richard jumped in. Eyes alight. Full circle, he said over Zoom. Elena nodding beside. Heal the land that raised us. Winter's hush brought construction. Logan overseeing crews. Mason penning site-specific poems etched into beams. Spring unveiling drew crowds. Queer authors. At-risk youth. Tyler among them. Now a collaborator. His designs gracing walls. No awkwardness. Just handshakes. Shared toasts to what was. What men's. Yet climax crested not in fanfare, but fracture's final echo. June's heat wave. Retreat opening weekend. Found Richard collapsing mid-toast. Stroke. Swift and sly. The ambulance wailed through woods. Birds scattering like punctuation. Hospital in Columbus bridged worlds. Elena's vigil. Claire flying in with babes. Logan pacing corridors like his youth. Mason sat vigil too, holding Richard's hand as machines hummed dirges. Consciousness flickered days later, Richard's voice a rasp. The boy. From class. You forgave. Mason squeezed. We all did. Richard's eyes, cloudy but clear, found Logan's. Proud, son. Of your heart. Then, softer. Mason, write my ending. True one. The request lingered as Richard stabilized. Rehab a slow march. Mason journaled it. Not elegy, but epic, the teacher's reckoning. A memoir woven with Logan's illustrations. Richard's annotations in shaky script. Published pensive. It sold modestly but shifted souls. Readings drawing letters. Your story let me forgive my own ghost. Fall's harvest moon marked Richard's last gala. Not as honoree, but attendee, cane tapping the Met Club floor. Elena wheeled him to the mic. Voice steady. Life's not plot without pain. But love, that's the arc. The applause thundered. Mason and Logan in the wings, arms linked. Post-party. In the limo, Richard pressed a key into Mason's palm. The cabin. Yours. Legacy. Winter deepened. Snow blanketing the retreat like absolution. Richard slipped away January's eve. Peaceful in sleep. Elena curled beside. The funeral was Cape Waterside. Ashes scattered to gulls. Hymns traded for Logan's guitar. Danny Boy raw and ragged. Grief's theater played long. Logan's silences. Mason's verses pouring like rain. But humanism's grace prevailed. Memorial at the center. Kids planting dogwoods in Richard's name. Plaques reading bridges built. Walls fallen. Spring's thaw brought renewal. Elena moved nearer. Into the brownstone's garden suite. Her quilts now heirlooms. Claire's family summered at the retreat. Twins chasing fireflies as Mason read bedtime tales. Logan and Mason mentored. Workshops where boys doodled loves unashamed. Girls scripted rebellions fierce. 10th anniversary dawned golden. Hudson sails dotting blue. They renewed vows on the original rooftop. Gray threading temples. Rings refitted looser. Jack's lines etched joyful. Officiated anew. From TV shocks to till death walks, here's to the mess. The kiss drew cheers. But afterward, alone on the ledge, Logan whispered, "Happy." Mason grinned. Wind tousling. Dramatically so. Years cascaded. 20s fire to 30s forge. 40s steady flame. The retreat expanded. A haven drawing souls from shadows. Mason's novels stacked on shelves. Logan's builds standing sentinel. Elena passed at 78, quilts shrouding her, but her laugh echoed in Elena Ellis grants for elder queers. Grandkids called them Papa Mays and Daddy Low, tumbling through cabins, demanding stories of the teacher who turned good. Mason spun them true. Betrayal's bite, love's bomb, the arc bending toward light. 60th birthday, retreat bonfire crackling. Logan pulled Mason aside, under stars pricked like promises. "We made it," he said, voice gravelly with time. Mason leaned in, forehead to forehead. "Better. We built it." The fire popped, embers rising like freed confessions. No grand climax left, just quiet romance, emotional depth, dramatic in devotion's daily dance. Humanistic end. Not flawless, but full love, the ultimate plot twist, redeeming all. In the hush, Mason whispered verses unborn, Logan's hand warm anchor. And the world, vast and American, turned on.